25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Nice looking, beautiful looking Thursday morning. 82 degrees already here at the Source. And I want to begin our next interview by asking you if you can relate to this story. I've had a few times in my life where I knew a guy who, and I'm not speaking about any specific guy, although as I talk about it, I can probably see a few in my mind. I've known a guy who was kind of abrasive and kind of hard to get to like, I guess is the best way to say that, and then, then you get to know him a little bit. You try to figure him out. And you say, well, I guess it's just one of these deals. I'm not going to ever get along. We're never going to get along completely, but you got to work with people, and then you meet his wife. And she's sweet and she's so gracious, and you say, well, gosh, he can't be that bad. If she's with him, he must be better than I realized. Maybe and all of a sudden your opinion of him changes because of her. Now I don't know if that happens to you ladies. Does that happen, Robin? Do you ever have a lady who is just abrasive to you, and then oh my gosh, you're just having a hard time warming up to her. Then you meet her husband and go, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Really? So
sure,
so
yeah.
It works in reverse.
Both sides of the fence, yeah. Yeah, some women are really nasty and their husbands are as wonderful as can be.
And I'm not saying we have hated our presidents, but the one thing that has been true throughout the United States history is that we've never had a first man. We might soon if Hillary is elected. We might. I don't know if you're going to call him first man. I guess that's another debate, but we already know him. But in the past, we didn't know really the first ladies. We got to know the presidents, and then later on, we got to know the first ladies. Jacqueline Onassis comes to mind real quickly.
Oh, she's the best, honestly.
Michelle Obama comes to mind. She's on the cover of the book we're going to talk about. The book is called On Behalf of the President. It is written by our guest, Lauren A. Wright. The subtitle, Presidential Spouses and White House Communications Strategy Today. Lauren has a list of credentials. Let me just real quickly go through them. She's a White House expert, a member of the White House Transition Project. That's cool. The Director of Investor Relations at NV5 Holdings, a field representative for Meg Whitman's 2010 California gubernatorial campaign, an intern for U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, the recipient of the John Allen Eastleigh Medal and Award in Religion, and the Elizabeth Phillips Award, plus, of course, an accomplished author. On behalf of the president, is her book. Good morning, Lauren Wright. Thank you for being on the air with us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh.
Hi.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm in New York City right now, and this is a hotel phone, so hopefully it works out for us.
Oh, my gosh. Hope you don't have a big bill at the end of the day. I can remember using those hotel phones, especially in New York City. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, well, this is worth it. No problem.
Oh, good. Well, I love what you're doing in the book and kind of exploring something that is going to be interesting if the next First Lady is a first man.
Yes, I think it will be very interesting, but to answer your question earlier, Bill Clinton is entitled to being called Mr. President for the rest of his life. I think it's most likely the office will be called either the office of former President Bill Clinton or the office of the president's spouse if they want to break precedent there.
That's interesting. Now, historically, do the spouses have a role in actual governing?
Well, that depends on the spouse. They certainly do govern behind the scenes, either through input in legislative affairs, but what they do publicly is advocate for policy items that are on the president's agenda, and they provide these frames that make White House policy more relatable or more appealing to the general public, and that's mostly what my book talks about, their public record.
Even on the lower level campaigns like county commission, city council, a candidate will often send out mailers, at least send out mailers with a photograph of himself with his wife and family. Mm-hmm. It's not unusual. And you have a lot of lady candidates this time around too, and they're doing the exact same thing, but in reverse.
That's exactly right, and I'm so glad you noticed that, because actually if you do look at competitive Senate races in particular, competitive congressional open seat races, for example, sometimes you notice that in those competitive races, the families of the candidates are almost always involved, and that seems to especially have been the case in 2012, and I looked into it in 2010. So it's an increasing trend that you just described.
Yeah, because the community or the country is not just hiring an elected official like a county commissioner or the president of the United States, but we're also electing the whole family. So we have to get to know them and know what their personalities are.
That's right. It's probably the easiest way to introduce the public to the character of the candidate is through the spouse, because they chose this person to spend their life with. It's genuine when they talk about them. It comes off more authentically than when a colleague says, this is a great person, this is an honest person, this is someone you can trust. So families are often deployed in that manner for that exact reason.
What I like about Mrs. Obama right now is that she has warmed up to Jimmy Fallon and some of the other funny late night talk show hosts. What was she on? Yeah, she was on Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, they were doing some kind of a skit with the ew skit. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yep.
It just changes your feeling about that person. And I don't know if she's always. I don't think she warmed up to them until kind of recently, maybe the last 2 years.
Yeah, because it's the end of the presidency. So
is that typical? I mean,
Laura Bush.
Did she warm up to the media like that?
They all do, actually. They all do it a lot, and the Obamas have particularly been very strategic about this. They came into office with the explosion of social media, but even controlling for that, Michelle Obama's staff has put her out there in a lot of alternative media outlets like late-night talk shows. And the reason spouses can do that is because they don't risk being called unpresidential, but President Obama does when he does those things. They can also fully control the narrative. So if you think about that, Jimmy Fallon is unlikely to ask Michelle Obama a tough policy question, even though she can probably answer it. It's really a softball environment, and there's usually an underlying policy issue that she's promoting.
Yeah, and from his perspective, I mean, he's trying to entertain people. He'll let somebody else in the media ask the tough questions. I don't blame him for that. Mrs. Reagan was somebody who was involved in trying to make the world a better place, I guess you could say, with policy. You might not agree with her thoughts and her contributions, but she was really trying, as I believe Mrs. Obama is.
Yes, and her Just Say No initiative, I think a lot of people forget that came on the heels of some of the strictest drug enforcement policies we'd ever seen in the U.S. So while she was going to schools and talking to parents and elementary school students about dangers of drugs, the administration was supporting their own efforts to get those policies passed. That introduced mandatory minimums into the policy lexicon, for example.
And the Laura Bush, I really admire her too, because she was a teacher. She is a writer, as is her mother-in-law, and they really centered their lives around the children.
Yes, literacy was a huge issue for Laura Bush and for Barbara Bush, and they both had strategic initiatives. And Laura Bush did campaign for the No Child Left Behind Act with her initiative. So again, very likable valence issues, but very, very strategic in the way that First Ladies are mobilized. I think that's important to remember.
Lauren, did you have like a fly on the wall kind of an opportunity to witness this stuff firsthand as a transition person?
Oh, I'm not on the transition team. I'm part of a group of scholars and journalists that advises transition teams and incoming administrations. But when I interviewed staff to First Ladies for my book, I heard the same story over and over again, and that's, we're not running a shadow government. These people are the most popular, and they're very, very effective communicators, and they're absolutely deployed when the president's unpopular to different audiences that might not favor the president as much as others. So, they're very honest about the strategy involved and the sheer volume of work that First Ladies do. And so that's really interesting to learn about.
Is that their choice? Is the work that they do their own choice, or is there something indoctrinated into the office? Well, I don't know if you call it do you call it the office of the First Lady? Is there something?
Yeah.
Okay. So is there something they inherit that they okay, here's your job description, or do they kind of call their own shots?
No, it's completely up to each spouse what they want to do, but there are customs in place. And so it's now a very highly organized, professionalized operation, about 16 to 25 people in the last 3 administrations. And the jobs of those people that work for the president's spouse are very specialized. They come from sometimes public relations backgrounds. They come from political campaigns and the policy world. So it's a very serious office, and I think the White House does leverage it to get certain points across that West Wing staff can't, for example, or other spokespeople can't.
I think that Jacqueline Onassis is one of the most elegant of the first ladies. Plus, she was also very in tune with the art community and such a gracious hostess, whereas some of the next first ladies wanted to be part of the political process with their husbands and not really be a hostess and be in the forefront like that as promoting the arts and things.
Sure, and again, to give her credit, she hired the very first press secretary to a first lady, and so that was the first time the White House recognized the amount of media attention that was placed on that office, and they hired specific people to take care of that because she was in such demand, and that continued in every year thereafter.
What I think your book does is it helps us understand the important role of the First Lady throughout history, and it's something you don't learn a whole lot of in school. In fact, you hardly learn about it. I think we know Martha Washington's name only because she was the first yes. First lady, and maybe the current first ladies. But there's a whole, maybe Mary Todd Lincoln. Maybe we know a little bit about her. I don't know why we know something about her, but it is interesting. And so the book helps us understand that role. And what you've already taught us just in this short interview is that the responsibilities of the person who is the spouse has become has increased and has become part of the norm, part of what's expected.
Absolutely, and thank you for the nice compliment. But even as a PhD student at Georgetown in political science, I wasn't exposed to the president's spouse. I had to really make the case that this is a serious topic that social scientists should be studying, and that when first ladies go public, there's a measurable impact on public opinion of the president. So, it's so interesting for some of those reasons we talked about, but it is a formal job, and it is very serious in some ways.
And the first ladies are also looked at as the ambassador of the United States when they're traveling or even when they do local functions.
That's exactly right. They're the most requested speakers by county and state party organizations during campaigns, for example. They're the most successful fundraisers on average, and abroad they carry the eyes and ears of the president in a way that even a secretary of state can't or an ambassador can't, because foreign officials know this is the person that has the most access to the president, so they're viewed as the next best person a lot of times.
Lauren A. Wright is our guest, and the website for the book, or the website for Lauren actually, is laurenawright.com, and she spells her last name with a W, W-R-I-G-H-T. We have to take a little break, Lauren, and we'll be right back. The book is On Behalf of the President. We're learning about the important role that the First Ladies have played throughout history, and we'll continue that discussion on the other side.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Sunshine mixing with clouds Thursday. A thunderstorm around during the afternoon and evening hours. Mainly dry though near the coast. The high 88 to 92. Then later Thursday night, partly cloudy. There can be a late night shower along the coast. Low 72 to 76. For Friday and Saturday, times of sun and clouds, along with a chance of a thunderstorm each afternoon. The high both days between 89 and 93. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Hi, this is Vanessa Lane Jennings with the Jennings Law Firm, located here in beautiful Ocala. Join me every single Friday at 10:30 for Legal Lane. We'll be discussing various legal topics such as family law, criminal law, contracts, and much more. So this is your chance to call in with your legal questions and have them answered. That's every Friday, 10:30, right here, WOCA The Source.
say that this country is in the toilet. Some would even go so far as to say the economy is going down the drain. But we say, if water runs through it, we do it.
Hi, I'm Sean Scott, owner of Mike Scott Plumbing, and I approve this message.
Veterans are the foundation upon which our freedom is built. Listen to The Source, WOCA, each Thursday at 9 a.m. to Veterans News with Hank Whittier from Vets Helping Vets. You'll hear tributes, information on veterans issues, and stories that will make you laugh, cry, and feel proud. Veterans News always focuses on the military, past and present, and on our first responders. Veterans News is brought to you each week by Bob Wine's Camellia Gardens and Nursery, keeping you blooming since 1952. All right, 9 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Lauren A. Wright is on the phone. Gosh, what a great... I was just looking at her website. She has accomplished a lot, and she graduated in 2014, so she's, I hope she doesn't mind me saying, very young. On behalf of the president, a very insightful book. You know what I was thinking about during the break is Mrs. Clinton, because... I think, okay, let me use the word politicized because I don't know that that's the right word, so I'm going to kind of give myself a disclaimer with that. But I think we politicize political people, but we don't necessarily politicize the first ladies or the spouses in general of any elected official. But in Mrs. Clinton's case, we there's no choice. You have to politicize her. She's running for office. So does that change the popularity graphs? Like in the book, you have some graphs, and it shows how first ladies have often been more popular than their husbands.
That's right. And actually, it's important to understand the difference between favorability, which you're looking at, and job approval. So even though Hillary Clinton's favorability was lower in some years of the Clinton administration, her job approval always averaged higher than President Clinton's. And that's the case for most first ladies. And even with Mrs. Clinton, it's important to understand that when people evaluate her, it is according to partisan criteria, but not nearly as strongly as when they evaluate the president and the vice president. So even someone who was politicized, as you're saying, like Mrs. Clinton at the time, was still more popular and still was a unique surrogate in the fact that she's evaluated differently, and all first ladies bring that to the job, and it's so important for the White House.
And you did some research about one-liners or some sentences, and then you took it around to say, was this something the president said or the first lady said?
That's exactly right. I asked survey respondents. I gave them exactly an excerpt from a speech, so it might have been about education, the economy, foreign policy, and I said, do you think this was made by the First Lady or the President? And in the overwhelming amount of cases, people expect the President to speak about foreign policy and the economy, and they expect First Ladies to speak about education and health care. So they think about those differences, and they have different expectations.
Oh, wow. And I'm guessing you purposely made the questions tricky, I'm guessing, right? So that I would be... You would tell me something they said that was policy related, and it would be from the First Lady.
Or from the President. You wouldn't know, and it was the exact same every time.
Wow.
So,
I love that. That's something that you should use on a late night talk show or something.
Yeah.
That sounds like the Jay Leno thing, Man on the Street. Or who said this?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. A lot of them wouldn't know who said it in the first place if you give them multiple choice.
Do you have a favorite first lady? I mean, you sound young, so I don't know if you would be familiar with Jackie Kennedy unless you did do your research. Do you have a
Oh, I'm familiar with all of them, and I do have a PhD in this area, so I know an awful lot about first ladies at this point. But I was so impressed to learn about how much Laura Bush did. If you read analysis of first ladies and of presidencies, historians often rank them according to these criteria that aren't many times based in empirical research. There's traditional first ladies and modern first ladies and active and passive, for example. But what I found is that consistently over the last 3 administrations, first ladies have been speaking in public more often, It's more often than vice presidents. And so according to that pattern, Laura Bush gave almost twice as many public speeches as Hillary Clinton did, and Michelle Obama really blows them both out of the water. So I was surprised by the volume of appearances she made, because all I had heard and read by historians was that she was a traditional first lady, and I really didn't find any evidence of that.
I love
can't
that.
imagine her being traditional.
I love that. I mean, she did seem to be a notch above, didn't she? Or does. I mean, she's still around.
Yeah.
It's going to be, and this is maybe just kind of a sexist observation or prognosis, but if Mrs. Clinton is elected and we have a first in line, whatever you call him, the former president, I don't know. I just think a lady, and this is sounding sexist, I know, probably to both of you, but it seems like a lady delivers the ambassador role in a much different way than a man would.
You know, I have to push back on that a little bit, because what Bill Clinton's doing on the campaign trail is really the best indication of what he would do in office. And what he's doing is humanizing Hillary Clinton. And if you watched his convention speech, it's about the character of the person. It's about telling people this person has had the same friends since grade school. And that humanizing work and the softening work is what first ladies spend most of their time doing.
Okay.
And that's what Bill Clinton has spent most of his time doing.
All right. Thank you for saying that. Now, is Donald Trump's wife doing the same?
She hasn't been out on the campaign trail as often, and, you know, I think that's unfortunate, because there's such a great opportunity with a spouse, and it is different than a candidate's children for those reasons we talked about before. They chose this person, they know them in a different way than, you know, a father-child relationship, for example, and because Mrs. Trump has such an interesting background. She didn't start with the financial and professional resources that Trump kids did, and so I think she would be able to offer a different perspective, and I think it would be wise for her to do that, even at the risk of making those mistakes that campaigns are so afraid of spouses making.
Were you welcome with your questions to some of the staffers that would staff the White House during different administrations? Were they okay to answer your questions? Did you build their trust?
Sure. I mean, it's always difficult to get access, and it was more difficult in Hillary Clinton's case and in Michelle Obama's case, because it's a sitting first lady or one that was running for office while I was finishing up the book. So that's more difficult, but I did get people from every administration, mostly former staff, and they're all very happy to talk about how important this figure is as a political actor that makes an impact, because I think the role is so often trivialized, and it really could not be more serious.
The book is called On Behalf of the President. You have done a great job, Lauren, with this book. I have a copy that was sent to me. I'd like to give it away. If you want it, call me. I'll put your name on it. The rest of us have to go buy it. The website is laurenawright.com. Lauren, how else would you recommend that people buy the book?
That's, you know, online is probably the easiest. It's on Amazon. Prager is the publisher. You can get it from them, or order it from your local bookstore. So any way you'd normally get a book will work out just fine.
Any political aspirations in your future?
Oh, no, I'm an academic, so I really just follow the data and the questions, and that's what takes me where I'm heading next.
Yeah, and just speaking of that, I know we've got only a few seconds left, but you have a lot of data in the book. I want the listeners to know, gosh, this is not just an opinion piece. I mean, you have data throughout the whole book backing up everything you say. So thank you for being on the air with us, Lauren.
Thank you.
That was really a great interview. We'll take a little break. Be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.